For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jaik Campbell. I feel like Dr. No here with a cat on my lap. I don't know why I've got the cat really, but I wrote a book with Professor Dale Williams called Shining a Light on Stammering, how one man used comedy to turn his impairment into applause. And it was a very exciting process to write the book because it just got so many issues which I had totally forgotten about out into the open again. And I think anyone who has a stammer really should do more writing, because it's such a cathartic and therapeutic process to write about it, because we don't realise just how significant an issue it is to stammer. It's a huge problem, and for the average person, if they have a job interview which they don't know how to do, or they get it wrong, then it's not that bad, because they can perhaps do another interview and they'll probably get that right. With someone who stammers, if they have a job interview and they don't speak very well in the interview, the cat can go now. No, covered in cat hairs. They can't just then do another interview and get that right. Every interview could potentially be a disaster, and they'll end up doing a job they don't want to do, and that potentially is an incredibly frustrating situation to be in. I think that's what led me on my journey to become a comedian, because I couldn't do the job I wanted to do, and so it was partly going to the City Lit in London when the speech therapy I had there taught me to push my comfort zones. And I remember saying to them, well, I've always wanted to become a comedian, so by really pushing that comfort zone and telling people that I have a stammer, is that okay with them? And they kind of said, well, it's not quite the pushing of the comfort zone which we had in mind, but that's kind of what led on to the journey of being a comedian. Really was also I really wanted to be a comedian in my mid-20s, because it's something that I always had an interest in, and the writing as well. I was always interested in that. So yeah, that's kind of what caused me to do it. And that's kind of what I did. I mean, it was helped also by going on a stand-up comedy course, which I mentioned in the book as well, which was run by a very nice man called Michael Knighton, who took me under his wing, as it were, and he could see that partly from the training of acting, because he had been trained as an actor initially, so he used a lot of his kind of acting skills to help us become comedians. But I realised as I was on this comedy course that the skills that he was teaching me was all about confidence, really, and pushing the comfort zones and just not hiding away and being less self-conscious, and yeah, trying to also write comedy about yourself. And a bit like the book, it was a very cathartic and therapeutic process to suddenly think, well, in actual fact, if I talk about that on stage, not only am I pushing my comfort zone, I'm also telling people that I have a stammer, and I'm also helping myself a bit mentally, because I'm writing about events that happened in the past which I'd never thought about, like being on a date in a restaurant, or failed job interviews, which again you kind of are quite traumatic events that it's very good to get these events kind of out again. So that's kind of what the book is about. It's all about the journey of growing up and having this very severe impairment, and then realizing that there has to be a way out of it. That I wasn't going to let my stammer ruin my 20s and 30s, because I couldn't accept that negativity. I couldn't accept that any more negativity. I had to change it into a positive, because life's too short, really. You can't go around feeling sorry for yourself. You've got to kind of just take that energy and use it positively. And I think that's kind of what comedy allowed me to do. It's a very free process and a very intricate process to get it right. It takes a lot of practice. Learning the scripts was again something which takes practice, and the process of learning a script helped me to speak again, really, and not spend too much time in front of a computer, and actually learn how to speak. So yeah, it's been an interesting thing to write, and I obviously I wrote it with this Professor Dale Williams from Florida State University. So he wrote one chapter, and which was like an analysis of the chapter which I wrote. So the book is alternate chapters of various headings which Dale came up with. So I don't know if you can see those, but it's kind of like early memories of stuttering, dealing with parents and growing up, and then speech therapy which I had, and then why I became a comedian, and then so then there's Dale's analysis of that chapter, and then how I became a comedian, which is in terms of the comedy course I went on and other kind of acting type courses. A bit about the London comedy circuit. Again, how it was interesting to deal with all the different types of audiences, and again, just pushing comfort zones, really. And then you've got a bit about also the same time doing a job and trying to maintain a job despite having a stammer, and then going up to the Edinburgh Fringe Festivals, which again is a very interesting process, because you're surrounded by very many confident comedians who, some of whom are on television, and you're competing against lots of different people, really. But it's a great process, because you're having to push yourself the whole time in terms of flyering and speaking to journalists to promote the show, and then speaking to audience members after the show. So it's a very communicative process, the Edinburgh Fringe, because everything is about talking, really. There's a slightly dark chapter after Edinburgh called Recovery Correlates and Suicide, which is a Dale's analysis of my time at Edinburgh, which I don't think it led to any suicidal thoughts, but anyway. And then just at the end, was it worth it, any regrets, and just Dale's analysis of that about life. So it's I very much enjoyed writing it, and I was very lucky to have the opportunity to write this. I'm going to end on this to say, why is it important to raise awareness about stammering? And I think this really is important. I really think there isn't enough said about it. It's a subject which the average person just doesn't know what it involves to have a stammer, what the issues are, how frustrating it can be, the embarrassment and the well everything really. And it's not spoken about in the media enough, I think, because everything has to be so quick these days. There isn't time for people with a stammer to be in the media. Everything has to be done, spur of the moment, very quickly. And I think it's important to get the message out there to the general public that it is a impairment which unfortunately takes a long time to get over, but we're still just people who stammer. We're still people, we just happen to have a stammer, and unfortunately it's the old neurons which aren't quite connecting which is causing it. And I still have a stammer, I can't get rid of it, but by writing about it, by being on stage, by talking about it, by pushing my comfort zones, then I have been able to reduce it. That's it really. Thank you very much for listening to this, and if you do ever want to buy a copy, it's on sale on Amazon.co.uk or .com around the world at the moment. I've been Jaik Campbell. Thank you very much for listening to this. All the best, everyone. Okay, thank you. Goodbye. Bye-bye.